we see accumulated dirt and decay. On the inside of our homes, we huddle among the warmth of our blankets and the company of our family. We sip hot chocolate and defy temperature by switching on a dial. The rain trickles down our windows and goes unnoticed. Yet this rain's promise of rebirth does not seem valid. This unnoticed rainfall is our poverty. It is the life of which lives in pain. It is not far from our very homes, and yet it goes unnoticed. Our poverty wants to be soaked with rain. It wants to reemerge from fallen to risen rose. Yet we do not gather the petals. We keep our pour in a never-ending drought. When we sip Starbucks at $5, do we not realize there are humans whose life dreads in gutters? Do we forget those who cannot enjoy the coat of a blanket or the warmth of a hot chocolate? Do we forget those whose rain does not gently trickle upon their unnoticed windows, but instead blinds their eyes with continuous sorrow? Therefore, as we huddle under our warmth, will we see the truth of the poor? Or continue with the American philosophy of a closed door? Will you agree with the theories of laziness and bootstrap capabilities? Will you continue to believe public safety nets are enough, knowing our government is and tends to be corrupt? Will you remain complacent and still, as the government fights enemies in wars costing billions, while poverty in America overwhelms millions? How is it possible that we are capable of making bombs, dropping bombs, and killing, while our welfare system is a weak attempt to solve the unbearable culture of poverty? Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "A nation that continues year after year to spend more and more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual doom." As Americans, it is time to stop being complacent. It is time to find solutions in the home, community, and nationally to create an unstoppable stampede. This is not a democratic stand. This is not a communist stand. This is not a socialist stand. This is a stand for humanity. This is anti-corruption, anti-complacency, and anti-exploitation. This is anti-oppression and anti-prosperity that happens in the face of poverty. Society cannot be overthrown, but instead rethought, remade with ideas and actions for socio-economic balance. There is no way 30,000 troops to Afghanistan is more important than the misery of homeless, jobless, and the hopeless. I do not agree with the concept of spending billions of dollars to kill, and on being okay with the mediocre approach on poverty. Poverty cannot be seen as laziness, but instead as a result of a long overdue imbalance. It is a culture that has developed. Most of us were raised with the idea of success because it always seemed obtainable. Poverty is the same. It is raised with tougher circumstances that make success difficult to obtain. Henceforth, why are technological advances praised when we cannot even manufacture a solution to human poverty, to the crisis of life with no food, no shelter, no promise of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness? How can we fight wars? How can we fight wars, spend millions on elections, exploit workers from third world countries, make policy with no accountability, back up the manufacture of weapons, and even help others when we can't even help ourselves? Right now, it is the time to realize this does not make sense. In this world, no leader is revolutionary or heroic, but instead, leaders are honest humans who speak for what is right. Therefore, lead without a revolution or heroic tendencies, and with honest solutions to end poverty and create a stable, loving reality. Do not whisper possibility, but scream proactivity. Learn to define hope and bring longevity, and become the generation to end generational poverty. Speech after speech has been made to proclaim the struggles of those who many we call insane. Yet poverty is not a sickness the poor create, but an imbalance they must learn to assimilate. Therefore, go out and do your research. Find passion for the passionless and seek out your own solution. Then act. A speech does nothing. It does not give water, electricity, food, or shelter. But instead, allow this to be an inspiration. so that this very generation, everyone in this room, can die, knowing that the next can live on with motivation. Do not have just a dream. Create a reality. Do not just linger in meager thought, but create structure from it. It is time. It is our time. It is everyone's time for preaching to become practicing. For when you walk outside those doors, this doesn't end. So when the next time you see a person on the streets, you don't ignore them. You give a lending hand, just as you've given me a lending ear. Therefore, donate, volunteer, and contribute. Be the rain that drenches poverty with the promise of rebirth. Uplift yourself to the highest of standards. The greatest of leaders have uplifted themselves to the highest of standards. And that is the love for others.